3 blocks from each other, made it even easier. And yeah, we had a lot of good times. Matter of fact, I forget what movie it was. It could have been that one. But anyway, we ended up shooting something in his house, his old house. And his family had been gone for years.
I'll be darned. Good morning. John Kretschmer and Scott Davis. We got a call sheet. We're going to go to work in the screening room.
Just park right in front here and just walk through the side door.
Do you mind? Can we use the load? We need to load in. Can I go to the back door and load in?
The back door. That's easier, not a problem.
Okay, and it's open back there?
Yeah, the back door, that big red door is always open.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, you're welcome.
Y'all have a good day.
You as well.
Hey, Scott Davis, welcome to Rap Beer.
Hey, John Kretschmer, and welcome to Rap Beer. This is Rap Beer. This is a new podcast that Johnny Kretschmer first introduced to me conceptually. What was the original name you were throwing around?
Swamp Fire.
Swamp Fire. And boy, that hit me like a lead balloon. I was just, but at the same time, Johnny's very creative. So there's, who knows where that came from and how it might develop. But anyway, then I started making some ideas lists, and then I got a call sheet with Rap Beer on it, and I went. And it didn't even dawn on me he was basically saying this is the new name. It took me like an hour to go, oh, that's what he means by Rap Beer, which I thought was so apropos.
One thing I thought was funny when I pitched Swamp Fire to you, said, John, I grew up in Wilmington. That really sounds like Leland. And I thought, I grew up in Charlotte. Everything this side of Lake Winnebow's the swamp, Wilmington included.
Yeah.
It's all about perspective.
No, it is. But anyway, I think Rap Beer is very apropos for this show.
Double entendre, hopefully.
Yes. But but at the same time, it is such a it's such a deep connected phrase in our business. And I am retired now from the film industry.
So far.
Well, coming up as a grip and a best boy and a key grip, my body's broken, physically. But no, don't get me wrong. I feel great, and I had a great career. But the word Rap Beer was just synonymous with the industry, especially as a best boy, because that's one of the jobs of the best boy is to have a cooler full of beer at the end of the day.
That's right. So
that everybody can sit around and rehash the previous 12 hours that we just did, which is also something I think that's probably in any industry where you gather with your coworkers afterwards. But it just seems like all we do is relive what we just did.
Yeah. Well, and I was a prop guy. Our job was to have Rap Beer for the whole crew.
Yeah. Yes.
And,
especially back in the day.
In the day. And it was those moments and that time shared on the tailgate.
Right.
Under the moon and stars at the end of the day. That was for real.
My favorite day, and to this day, it is still one of my clearest memories because my brain is really going to heck pretty quick. We're on Chestnut Street, right at the corner of Chestnut and Front, and we've been shooting all night. And this is a Dino. I can't remember which one it was, but this was a Dino who Dale ran his picture because this is literally the mid '80s. And it's 7:45. We've just finished. We've just gotten the trucks loaded, and we're all sitting on the tailgate. And the tailgate is facing Front Street. And there we all are drinking beer, laughing, smoking. And there's these guys going to work in ties, and there's briefcases, and literally so confused because still the film industry is very new still. So it's, who are these guys? They look like movers.
Yeah.
And it's like 7:30 in the morning and they're drinking. But I'll never forget the look on these people's faces. Yeah. And I don't know, there was something very cool about that, being that guy with his beer at 7:30, 7:45 in the morning. But
I remember a swimming pool in Georgetown, South Carolina as the sun rised, and the entire crew's in there with the boombox blaring Red Hot Chili Peppers or Violent Femmes, and dudes are getting up going to work, and we're smashed and splashing.
That's so awesome. No, and isn't that really part of the uniqueness of our industry is, just because it really does become, it becomes our whole life,
Right.
especially when you're on the road together, when everyone is being put up, and you don't see that as much as used to because there's,
But here we are 40 years later in Wilmington, where that entire model,
Right.
happened, where the
Right.
business came here,
Right.
we gathered here, and here you and I are sitting in the screening room at CineSpace Studios where it all happened.
Yes.
And 40 years later, picking up on our conversation just as it would have happened on the tailgate.
Oh my gosh, you're
Under
so
the Moon and
right.
Stars
You're so
many
right.
years ago.
You're so right. Because we haven't seen each other since Homeland really until recently, and
That's right.
yet we just started talking like I'd seen you
Yeah.
last week.
I remember you and I think it was No Mercy, where the grip world and the set dressing world merged. You and I had to load up a flatbed truck with something out at the Navassa fertilizer plant
Oh yes,
to come over, and you were tying grip knots, and I was tying set dressing knots
that's right.
on the back of the truck to get whatever it was we were hauling from there to here.
I'll be darned.
Yeah, that's one of my
Wow.
first memories. You.
Is that right?
Another memory working with Scott Davis was in the Marriott Marquis in Atlanta
That was
on Manhunter.
that was a cool place.
Yeah.
That was a cool
Going to
place.
50th floor,
I mean, it was so huge, and you walked inside and you looked straight up.
Yeah.
It was, I really felt like a small town country boy when I walked in there. Mouth just agape, looking up. Oh, look at the tourists.
Here I was a kid. This is my second movie.
Right.
Walked into the lobby of the Marriott Marquis with Melbourne to check in. And soon you learn that you'll never want to be in the presence of Melbourne checking in or going to lunch or doing anything. But nonetheless, I was young and I was saddled up with him and we were checking into our rooms. And Mel gave me one of the best architecture lessons of my life, albeit very much in Melbourne style. And that he looks at the Marriott Marquis, he looks up this big, voluminous atrium, soft mauve colors and cured contours. And he says, God damn it. He said, the Empire State Building is a dick. This building is a pussy. What? Look at it. And he's absolutely right.
Right.
The outside of the Marriott Marquis is a building that's with child. It's pregnant.
Oh, wow. That's true.
On the inside, the soft colors, it's the womb.
Oh, my gosh.
And as a somewhat cruel joke, in the middle of the womb is the elevator shaft with the elevators going up and down. He was spot on. And then he says, okay, guys, check in your bags and meet me up at the clitoris for a drink. And perfectly positioned is a little round bar floating above the floor.
God.
And that's a true lesson in architecture and speaks to the genius and vulgarity of none other than Melbourne.
Oh my God, that is just wonderful. Tell me,
So that's Academy Award winning production designer Melbourne.
Now, the cool thing about rapbeer.com is each episode has its own page. And so for people like Mel that we talk about during an interview, you can now link right to their IMDb page, right? By just clicking on their name. Isn't that right?
Yeah, that's right. Each episode has its page with information of our guest. And at the bottom is a list of IMDb links of characters and influences that were mentioned during the story.
Now, you also, I think it says, buy them a beer.
Yeah, if you're interested and you read up on them and you happen to run into them on the sidewalk, offer to buy them a beer. Tell me you heard about them on Rat Beer.
Rapbeer.com. Now, remind me of the trail you took from Charlotte to Raleigh to Wilmington.
Right. Chapel Hill. Thank you.
Chapel Hill.
Well, my show business career, I guess you would say it started in high school. I decided to change high school because I wanted to play soccer for a coach that was at West Mac. Had a big fuss with my mom to leave a little private school that they had built. Remember, it was integration of the schools and busing.
Yep.
And on my side of Charlotte, our parents worked hard to keep us from getting bused to the other side of town. So they built a little private school and went there. It was fine. And I played soccer, which the private school programs had soccer, and loved that. And then a really great coach, purported coach, was coaching at West Mac. So I made a big push. I want to go play for this coach. Mom kind of pushed back on it, but nonetheless, I got to go. And as soon as I told my neighbors, Jay Michael lived up the road, hey, I'm coming to West Mac. He says, you need to join the AV club. He says, you'll love it. He says, we got cameras, we got a studio. And I said, okay, I'm in. So I went to West Mac and joined the AV club.
Oh, wow.
Our librarian, old Southern lady, ran it. You know, she was our
sponsor or whatever,
guardian. And what we had is we had a Sony black and white reel-to-reel pistol grip camera.
Oh, wow.
So you had a pistol grip camera and a real 8-inch reel-to-reel. And we had a studio camera, a little black and white studio camera. We had a 3/4-inch tape deck.
Wow.
And a monitor.
Wow.
That's all we had.
Yeah, but still.
But we produced live news every day, homeroom.
Every day.
Yeah, the student council officers were the
anchors.
And we showed live TV, closed circuit every day. So what we did is we took all the video traveled through coax cable.
Right.
So we went to Radio Shack and bought a bunch of coax switchers, and we built a switching board. So now we can put the Sony camera on a tripod. We can have our other camera on a tripod. We put the monitor in the set, and we had a 3/4 machine, and we can switch cameras, and we can roll video on the monitor, and then we can cut to the video.
Oh my gosh.
And we sorted all that out. And to this day, I can't remember how I did it, but I would take that 3/4-inch machine home, which is about as barely fit in the trunk of your car, and somehow would record off of my black and white 18-inch TV, that I had up in my bedroom. I don't know how you did that. I think you attached something to the antennas and turned it to channel 4. I don't know.
Yeah.
But long story short is I would record Saturday Night Live and this, that, and the other. And so couple times we cut to commercial, and we cut to Saturday Night Live commercial, like Bassomatic.
Oh, wow.
Or Pick Your Union Label.
Wow. Yeah.
So we were often getting called up to the principal's office. We were getting in trouble. I remember we got really in trouble. We showed Do You Think I'm Sexy?
The music video?
Yeah. Rod Stewart.
Yeah, that's it.
So, we got in really big trouble because we showed Rod Stewart's Do You Think I'm Sexy video during homeroom news. And they kept threatening to take it away. Nonetheless, I was making television in high school.
I'll be darned.
I applied for and got a scholarship to go to the North Carolina High School Radio and TV Institute at Chapel Hill.
Was this between junior and senior high? Or
something like that, yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay.
It's like a 2-week camp.
I mean, just 11th and 12th grade, I meant.
Yeah. You go to Carolina, WBTV, Channel 3 in Charlotte, paid my way. And we go up there and for 2 weeks intensive.
Oh, wow.
You make radio, you make television, you have to manage a TV station, you have to do all this stuff. Dr. Elam ran the program.
Holy cow.
And then I came back with a reel. I directed live television, and with the full switching board and technical directors, everything. We all rotated positions.
Oh, my God.
And I was interning at WBTV at the time. I'd go in on Saturday mornings at 6:00 and intern on the morning shows.
Right.
I showed the director my reel one time. He says, come in next week, I'm going to let you direct. So I was in high school. I directed the morning gardening show.
Oh, for God's sakes. No way.
3-camera setup, 2 people in it interviewed, and then he would take a camera away. So you got to do it with 2 cameras. So now you got to request moves. You move here, cover that, go then, come back, come back. And so I was directing live TV.
I'll be damned.
In high school. I had one school only to go to. I was going to go to Carolina. And applied, got accepted to Carolina. And my friend John Bankson, who we're going to have on Rat Beer, who's a prop master. I met John Bankson in college. We were dorm mates.
I'll be darned.
And one time he offered to type one of my English papers. He's just up in the room, and I barely type and can barely write, evidently, because he's typing my English paper and just slamming me. He says, "You're awful." He says, "You're terrible. You're the king of redundancy." He's just laughing and typing. And it's the best thing that ever happened to me, because I learned right then and then I need to learn how to write.
Oh, wow.
And I knew I didn't want to go to the radio, TV, motion picture program. I'd gone to camp there.
Oh, you knew you didn't?
No, because I knew it already. I was working with people who come in the program.
I don't need to,
I don't need to do that. And I definitely need to learn how to write. So that day, I went and signed up for journalism school.
Oh, okay. So that's what you came out of college with?
Yeah. Bachelor's in journalism, speech communication, and advertising copywriting. And I was placed. I had a job in New York because it was a new program. It's really advanced. And I kind of went up to New York, kind of, walked down the halls, and they said, well, here's the guys writing the Tide ads, and these are the guys writing the Clorox ads. And I was like, ugh, it just didn't feel right.
Right.
It was short-sighted because I went to school with Michael Jordan, and when Michael Jordan left the same year I did, and the entire advertising and sports marketing industry changed.
Right.
I could have been in that wave.
Gotcha. But you don't know.
But I'd heard they were building a movie studio in Wilmington, and I said, that seems more interesting. And then that was the spring, and I literally, my mom worked at First Union Bank in Charlotte on the top floor. She was executive assistant, and one of the members of the board who worked on her floor was a guy named C.C. Hope, who was also the North Carolina Secretary of Commerce. And I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do, and should I go to Wilmington or not? And kind of with her connection, I was able to get a meeting with C.C. Hope in Raleigh.
Right.
So I graduated on Sunday. I had a meeting on Monday in Raleigh with C.C. Hope, the North Carolina Secretary of Commerce.
Wow. I
walked in the door, walked down the hall, and Paula Wyrick met me and walked me into his office. And I said, well, I'm supposed to go to New York, but I'm kind of interested in what's going on in Wilmington. And he said, son, go to Wilmington. You will have a movie career. So we're going to work hard to get this business. He said, go. And on his words.
Just his words.
Yeah. And I spent the summer trying to figure out the business. I didn't know. I got this book called, I checked out a book out of the library called Anatomy of Motion Pictures.
Oh, wow. Just the fact you found that in the library.
And it's in Charlotte Library. And you open it up in the middle, it had like the full illustration of the entire movie set.
Right.
And then you flip it over and it's the line drawings with the numbers of who's doing what.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I remember those books. Yes.
Yeah. This guy is a cinematographer,
right.
blah, 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 blah. This guy, and there's someone sitting on the desk over off the set. And you flip it over and says, this is the production manager. They're the person responsible for hiring. So boom, that's all I need to know.
That's all I need to know.
So I spent that summer of 84 writing letters down here to anybody I could get a hold of.
Where were you finding names and addresses? Do you remember?
I was probably calling, persistent, reading newspapers.
So you were just doing the legwork of research before computers, basically.
That's
which
right.
Means you were probably looking up directories, and you're looking up just anything that would get you a connection closer.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
That's
and
funny.
I knew Martha De Laurentiis. I wrote her a letter.
Right.
And I wrote, anyway, and then I would call down here and just, who's the production manager? And they'd just give you the name. And then, then I'm going to fire off a letter to this address, to that guy's name. And my letters always said, I'll call you soon after you receive this letter. So they get the letter, and a couple of days later, I can say he's expecting my call.
Yes. That's true.
Right.
That's true. And did that work every time?
Well, I had a feather up my sleeve I didn't even know I had. There's another gentleman in the business named John Kretschmer.
Oh, A more established gentleman named John Kretschmer.
John Kretschmer, who just happened to be the first assistant director on Silver Bullet. Right? So it turns out I can call anybody.
And they think it's him calling. You just didn't realize it. That's what. Why do I get through so easy?
You know, it's like, I kept getting a you again.
But the fact they would put you through so quickly, you know?
Yeah, whatever. I call Martha, you know? Literally. And John Kretschmer, oh, hello. You know, she'd be polite and whatever. And so here's another, Carolina kid, wanting in. And
another Carolina kid wanting in.
And I'm waiting tables in Charlotte.
Yeah.
And trying to figure out how to get down here. And it got close enough. I actually ended up with a couple of meetings. Year of the Dragon was big. I think I had a meeting with whoever the production manager was for Year of the Dragon. Marie was going. Elliot Schick.
Elliot Schick? I remember Elliot Schick.
Was the production manager.
Wow, I haven't heard of that name in 30 years.
And I think he said, yeah, come on down. We'll meet you or something like that. And had all my meetings lined up. And then convinced my parents I'm coming down. I was going to stay with a friend of my sister, sleep on his couch. Some guy, a stranger I didn't know.
Yep.
And then went out to have a really big weekend in Charlotte at my hometown before I'm getting ready to ship out to Wilmington.
Yep.
That's right. Let's just say I wasn't paying attention to the weather. And I got on the road 5 a.m. Monday morning in the dark, driving to Wilmington, and all the traffic's going the other direction.
Oh.
Hurricane Diane.
Oh my God.
I pulled up in Rockingham at the Orange Tot restaurant to get some eggs and grits,
Right.
And pull over the newspaper and it says, hurricane headed to North Carolina coast.
So what did you do?
I plowed ahead.
Oh, you came on in.
In my 1976 Volkswagen Rabbit.
Did you have that car in college?
No. I got the end. It's my grandfather's car. My German grandfather bought the first year Rabbit.
Sure.
And I think I got it like my senior year. He gave it to me.
Gotcha.
But it was water cooled and a mess and rusting out. And
didn't matter. Your first car, man. My first car was a '62 Ford Falcon.
Oh, there you go.
It was the engine was so small you could climb in with it and close the hood. But I love that car.
Well, my first car was a Gremlin, and that engine was so big. It'd run a tank. Literally, it's like the biggest straight six ever made.
Is that right?
Yeah,
I didn't know
just
that.
drank gas.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's funny.
It's a fun car.
But anyways, all right. So you drive in.
Drive in, and I do remember about Waccamaw thereabouts. The water's about 6 inches deep.
So she's like right off the coast at this point.
Correct, on a Monday.
Okay.
So I check in with Tim Ross. Was my host.
Your host, gotcha.
And little apartments on Randall, right across from the university.
Yeah.
He's right on the end.
So is it raining like hell? Is it
it's
windy?
raining. It's come and goes. It's raining in the morning.
Okay, so
on Monday,
it's still going through the bands, basically.
I don't know if you remember Diane. Diane stalled also. But anyway, I land on Monday.
Yeah.
Actually, on Monday, the sun parted. We went body surfing, big waves. I busted my nose. And then that night, my host was the night auditor at a motel. He had to go to work at night. So I'm here alone. And,
storms.
In his apartment, I got a 6-pack. And the funny thing is, we'd met some couple of guys that we went swimming with. And all of a sudden, there's a knock at the glass doors with these guys in hazmat suits and stuff and says, you got to evacuate. And I said, all right. And it was them coming to get me. And they took me to a hurricane party. So that night, I learned what a gust of wind is. I saw live oaks, every branch hit the floor, hit the ground, and then snap back up.
Yep.
And it rained like crazy. The storm never landed.
Yep.
Finally, my roommate got off work in the middle of the morning and picked me up, took me home. We slept all day, and then Tuesday night was landfall. And and he said, "Fuck it, I'm not going to work." Right. And I said, "Well, guess what? I got 2 hits of acid in my pocket."
From the party the previous night?
No, I brought them from Charlotte. So we dropped acid at landfall.
Oh my God.
And Diane went all night long. The weirdest thing was we had an AM radio on. You know how at AM radio, you'll get a station from way up north.
Oh, yeah.
It bounces off the stratosphere or whatever. And the weirdest thing in the middle of the night is we're listening to a station from Ohio where they're doing a live interview with the Hurricane Hunter airplane that's flying right over our head. And you try to triangulate that.
And you're tripping.
When you're tripping.
Go outside with a flashlight.
So, but nonetheless, all my meetings were canceled. The whole studio had emptied. I came back over here. The back lot was leaning. You know, all the poles were leaning from the wind.
Yeah. I remember Bobby talking about that. Yeah.
And then I went home and I lied to my mom. I said, I got a job and I'm going back and I need to loan me $200. And you got a job? Yeah, I got a job. And I came down here with no job. But I need to find a job real quick. And I was a accomplished bartender of sorts from college. And my first job was actually temp agency, digging a hole in Ogden. I can tell you where it is. It's for an AT&T switch house. But it was my first job. I went there and dug a hole. And I'm with a guy named Gene. And I saw Gene not too long ago. And then I went, got a bartending job at the Sheraton at Wrightsville Beach, which is now the Holiday Inn.
Right. I remember when it was Sheraton.
In full-service bartending. Actually, I pulled beer a lot, but I'd never actually done proper bartending, but I had a really good manual and I faked it. And John Copeman was a bus boy at the Sheraton.
Is that right?
And I was bartending, and we were talking about how we were wanting to work in the movies.
I'll be darned.
And I do remember going to his house one time, and he's showing me his Super 8 movies he had made, you know, like knife stabbing a hand and things of that nature. Yeah. So he was at it at a young age.
Wow.
But the biggest benefit was the film crew for Marie was staying at the Sheraton.
So you were meeting these
I was their
people.
bartender.
Oh my God. Man, that's a great story.
Chris Meanjaz, the cinematographer, would come in. He wouldn't drink. He'd get a cup of tea. And had all his books and study. Right. He would sit up there. And I was serving Chris Meanjaz tea. And the prop master, an Irishman from New York, Frank O'Shea, sat there. He was my mole. You know, just a really good guy and knew what I was wanting. And, and he was coaching me. Yeah. You know, this is what you need. And he mentioned the name set dresser. And what's a set dresser? I imagine dress forms and skirt and hoop skirts. I don't know. You know, I had no idea even what it was. And
that one wasn't in the book with the lines and the numbers.
It probably was, but I went right over that. Yeah. And but I'm sitting there trying to get my meetings. I'm making my phone calls, and I learned with Elliot Schick that if you called at 7:00 or before, he would answer his own phone. Oh. He was there early, so every morning I'd call him at 7.
Now, back then, was there a shift go through an operator, or was it direct lines? Did you have his direct number, or did you have to?
Yeah, his direct line. Somehow it goes straight to him.
Okay.
Somehow I got straight to him.
Because I'm trying to. It seems like I remember in the early days, you would call the main number, and then they would send you, and they would just send you through.
Right.
You know,
particularly if you're named John Kretschmer.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I just remember, you just say, can I speak to whatever production? Oh yeah, and they just send you through. Anyway, go ahead. So
so he would, and I was trying to get a PA job.
Right.
I wanted a PA job, and he kept saying, "We haven't hired you yet. Call me again tomorrow, or call me next day," or he kept call me back. And meanwhile, Frank, the prop guy, the Sheraton, says, "Well, look, if that PA job doesn't work out, they need drivers, and they're hiring drivers." So okay, and so my 7 a.m. call to Elliot Schick. He goes, "PA job, we filled it. Sorry, can't help you." And I said, "What about transportation?" He says, "Yeah, call Rick Barefoot."
Oh, okay.
And that was it. And I called Rick Barefoot. And
he needed some drivers?
They needed drivers.
John, as we're sitting here recording Rap Beer this morning in the screening room at Sin Space Wilmington, I'm just reminded about how much history actually has happened in this room.
Well, documenting history is one of our missions on Rap Beer. And as a young set dresser, I could have never imagined I would have the privilege to watch dailies with the grown-ups. And yet, it was an open-door policy. And at the end of the day, we could come in with our muddy boots and whatever and sit on the floor and watch dailies along with the producer, director, and even Dino himself sitting on the back row.
Oh my God, for a young filmmaker, what an opportunity to just watch everybody's work come together on the screen.
It was part of that sharp learning curve we enjoyed here in Wilmington. And I'm very thankful to CineSpace Wilmington letting us record Rat Beer in this historic space.
Adding more history to the space.
Very good.
I wasn't briefed properly on this
John, where'd you get the banjo from?
Well, the Wilmington film industry has a strong influence from Shelby, North Carolina, Western North Carolina.
True.
And I personally have an affinity for folk music and bluegrass from the hills of North Carolina. Turbo Pro Project is a band that fuses hip-hop, bluegrass, and jazz. And I love the mix. Turbo plays banjo. DJ Deacon plays turntables and beats. Ryan R&B Barber plays vocals, beats, and keys, and Kim France plays upright bass.
Well, I know there's a lot of different feels in just that one song.
It's an amazing band. I first saw them in 2008 at a music festival in the mountains, and have been a fan ever since. The song we're using as our theme music on Rat Beer is a traditional bluegrass tune called Cluck Old Hen.
I love that name.
And it's off their album Daydream from 2008.
Nice. Well, there's a lot going on in that song, and I do appreciate it.
Rock on. July 16th, 1983, the Morning Star reads, Firestarter to be filmed on location in Wilmington.
Yeah, so it may have been that article, or it was just the buzz in the theater community. I really don't remember, but I just remember hearing that they were coming and they were doing Firestarter, and I had read that book the year before. Right. So I knew that book, and I knew what a cool story it could be. And so I thought, by gosh, I want to work on this. And so, we're all kind of sniffing around trying to, and again, it's such a small town, you would think it would be real easy to get all the information, but it really wasn't, because there was very few locals really involved at first.
Well, the way it's kind of well reported in the Morning Star, you have the location manager.
Right.
Who gives the beat to the newspaper, right. and that's the know-all. That's the person that knows anything.
That's it. And of course, the next people that are reached out to are the people that are doing theater in town, because by the casting directors, because they need to fill in extras and they need to fill in tiny parts and whatnot, walk-ons. So, which is how. So I knew that the film was coming. I had no idea how to get involved. So one Sunday morning, we're sitting on our front porch, and it's probably 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning, and we're already drinking beer. We're a bunch of kids in our 20s and smoking cigarettes, drinking beer. And Don calls me and says, hey, they're having a casting call down at the Hilton this afternoon, and I gave him your name. I gave him 3 or 4 names of people, but I gave him your name. You need to go down there and see this woman, Joanna something. I can't remember her last name now. But anyway, you need to go see her. She's one of the casting directors. But I gave her your name. I said, oh, okay. Now I got a little buzz going. So I'm a little cocky now. And so I go down there. A couple other people came with me. Believe me, it was all such a blur. But I go down there, and there are just people walking and running around everywhere. There was probably a couple hundred people there, and they're all there for signing up to be extras and stuff like that. And anyway, I ask one person, then another person, then they get me in contact with Joanna, and I tell her Don Ansel told me to call. Oh yes, come on back here. And she says, yeah, we've got a few really tiny roles, like this one that I want you to read for. It's literally called The Bearded Student, and I had a big beard at the time. It's just one line, but it should be fun. And so I go into this room, and there's a couple people there. I don't know who they are, and they've got a camera, and it's just one line. Is this experiment being done for the shop? Because I'm a wise ass college student, and I know about the CIA, and I know that the shop is connected to the CIA, and I'm going to get to the bottom of this. That's kind of the way I read it,
right?
At least I guess it is. So I leave, go home. A couple weeks later, by this point, somebody has said to me, "Dude, you just got to go out to 23rd Street. They're in a middle building out there, and there's some trailers out in the yard." He says it's wide open. Just go out there and start knocking on doors. And so I thought, okay. So I get on my motorcycle, a little Yamaha 360 I used to have back then, and I ride on out. And of course, there is literally this metal building. There's no fence. There's no guard shack. It's literally just it was some sort of metal welding shop at some point or something, you know. And then all around it, behind it, all this,
By the way, you're sitting in the middle of that building right now. Just to remind you that.
Funny enough.
Said building.
That is so funny.
Shedding us from the elements right now.
You are right. But so anyway, so I just drive. I just pull in the driveway, and I'm on dirt, and I'm just kind of going past the metal building, and I'm intimidated, and I don't know what to do. So I decided to hit these outer buildings, these mini offices and just containers that I see.
Yeah.
And start asking around, because there's some people out there. And I knew that I wanted to be in special effects. That was the thing. I wanted to help with special effects because I knew there was a lot of fire in this movie. And I just thought, why not? I do theater. I can help.
Magic. Yeah. That's where the magic is.
Yeah. Right. So I asked a couple people, and they all keep pointing to the very far trailer mobile office way in the back.
Right.
I mean, way in the back against the tree line. And so I go there and knock on the door, and Jeff Jarvis opens the door, and he looks at me. "Can I help you?" Now, I'm 135 pounds soaking wet. I've been in a theater for months. I'm almost translucent. I'm so white. And just a skinny kid with a t-shirt on a little motorcycle. "Hi, I'm Scott Davis, and I do theater here, and I want to help and be a part of this movie.
I want to blow stuff up."
And I said, and I know the story. I've read the book, and I'd like to help you guys. And he just kind of guffaws, and he says, "Kid, this is a very dangerous movie." He says, "All of my guys are coming from California. They all have had years of training. They're licensed. There's just all these steps you got to take. Yeah, I'm not picking up any new people for this job." Closes the door. I leave. I come back the next morning, and I drive across the lot, and I go back and knock on his door, and he opens the door, and he goes, Didn't I talk to you yesterday?" "Yeah, I did, but I wanted to give you 24 hours to think about it." And, he laughed. He thought that was funny. And, we talked for a couple minutes, and then, "I'm still not hiring you." Sent me on my way. So this continued for 8, 9, 10. When I tell the story, sometimes it's up to 14, 20 days. But I want to say it was probably 8, 9 times every day, every morning.
Patient persistence.
And every day we spent a little more time talking, and we started sharing stories. I was telling him stories about, places to go around here, and, growing up here. And, he would tell me a couple of movie stories, movies he'd worked on that I had heard of. How exciting. First person stories. So this relationship goes on for, like I say, a week or so. And, I think the last time we sat on those steps for about 25 minutes, just bullshitting. And at the very end, he said, "Scott, I really appreciate your enthusiasm and your tenacity, but I'm still not hiring you." And I looked at him and said, "All right, I'll see you tomorrow." So I get on my motorcycle, and I'm going back across the field, and I'm coming past the painting shack. And there's a guy out there that I recognize. I know he's from Wilmington. I don't know who he is, but it was that small of a town back then. And he's painting some stuff on I don't know, just on some sawhorses. And I pull up to him, I get off, and I said, "Man, how'd you get this job?" He goes, "I just showed up one day and they just happened to need painters." And I said, "Man, I've been banging on that guy's door for over a week," and blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, the Ward Welton comes out, paint boss. And, he was the paint boss.
Yeah.
And he starts screaming at me. When I tell you 7 a.m., I mean 7 a.m. Now you get your ass inside that. And if you see any raw wood, I want primer on every piece of raw wood you see for the rest of the day. And I looked at him, and I looked at the other guy, and I looked at him, and I just picked up my stuff. I said, "I am so sorry, sir. That will never happen again." And I just walked right into the building. Now, I did not arrive in paint clothes, but I left in paint clothes.
Yes, you did.
And I painted for 2 days, and I am the worst painter. I have no delicacy about it. But I'm a lot of fun, and and before long, I was, kind of the guy. I was the logistics guy, and I was getting stuff prepared, and I was doing stuff for Ward, and that was literally. I'm there for 2 days, and then Ward comes up and he goes, "You're not that kid I talked to on the phone." And I'm like, "Damn!" And so I started picking up my stuff. He goes, "No. We're not curing cancer here. You can stay." He says, "The kid that I had talked to on the phone was an offender bender and just never bothered to call me back." And that's how I got in the film business. And I always, when I tell this story, especially to film students, the point I try to make is it was the tenacity. It was the, let that no just empower you to go again. I mean, yes, you may be annoying them, but they will appreciate that you keep coming back. And so for me, that's how I got in the film business.
And that's what I call patient persistence.
Yes. And not to mention, I was a little more confident every time I went. You know what I mean? Because I was getting comfortable with the surroundings. I was getting comfortable with my pitch.
Right.
And also realizing, because that's the other thing too, when you go into a brand new situation, you just assume everybody's smarter than you, more talented than you. And, and as you begin talking to people, you realize, oh, we all got the same issues and talents, different talents, but we all have our issues. We're all human beings. We all have bad days. Right. And, and the movie business is just like any other manufacturing company to me, because that's what we do. We manufacture a product. Ward and I became good friends. Ward took me on the next 3 projects. When Dino left after Firestarter, we all assumed that was it, and so I went back to the theater, and everybody went back to whatever they were doing. And then, of course, I get a call from Ward. I'm pretty sure Ward was how I knew they were coming back, because he calls me and says, "Hey, Dino's coming back. Apparently he's going to do a few pictures there, and they've invited me back, and I'm calling to invite you back." And I was like, "Wow, yeah," and that was Cat's Eye. Real quick story about Cat's Eye. So, again, I'm on the painting crew, and I'm working with guys that end up all becoming, scenics, big time scenics. Sure. And some real talented people in that group. And like I said, I'm just the funny guy. And so anyway, we're on the set, one of the oversized sets, and there's a wallpaper pattern that is on the set that little Drew Barrymore's bedroom's in. Again, this is Cat's Eye. And there's this little monster in the story that gets up on top of children and sucks the breath out of them and takes their soul away. And so we had to build I don't know what the scale was, but let's just say it was 8 times the size. I just know that the mattress of the bed was probably 20 feet in the air. Right. So the walls were all probably 20, 25 feet. And they had this line pattern. It was like images of sort of like little flowers. And they were like in straight lines every 6-8 inches. So they had taken that blasting paper that
frisket. We call it frisket. Yeah.
And so they had cut out like 3 patterns that you overlaid for the multiple colors, and then you just sprayed it,
right?
And then you'd pull it off because it was adhesive, and then you put the next one on. I did an entire row, which took most of the day, And at the end of the day, Bobby Testerman, who was the foreman, he comes in and he looks at it. He goes, "That's a beautiful job." That's really clean, but it's completely upside down. And I didn't know. I was so upset, embarrassed, just as I was going, because he was talking about he said, "Really, you did a nice job, but it's completely upside down." Oh my God. That was really when I knew that eventually I'm going to find something else to do in this business, because there's no way I can continue. So after that, I want to say is when Ward said, "Hey, I'm going to do this movie called Color Purple," which I had read that book.
Right.
And I said, Where are they filming then? He goes, a little town outside of Charlotte, and which was Monroe, I think it was.
Yeah.
And anyway, 8 months. We spent 8 months.
You painted Color Purple.
Yes.
I'll be darned.
Yeah, and actually, this is back in the 80s, and so when productions would send people out on location, you shared rooms.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And so Ward and I were roommates. Ward just said, he said, "They're making me share with somebody," and I just said, "It might as well be you. I like you the most socially." And so for 8 months we spent we were in a Holiday Inn, a motel, because the cars are parked there and the doors are right there. And we drove down this back road. It was a gravel road that started about half a mile from the hotel or motel. And it was like a back way to the set. And Ward had found it like on the second or third day. And actually Ward started having me drive. Well, I had never had a power steering car up to that point. And so I'm driving 10-2, and we're constantly just drifting a little bit. And Ward finally looks at me and he goes, "You never driven power steering before?" I said, "No." He goes, "Put your arm on the armrest and just grab the wheel with one hand and just kind of guide it." And I just thought that was one of the coolest things I'd ever learned, because now I'm driving with one hand. Anyway, we drove that gravel road for months and months and months.
Wow.
And it was a great experience, and I learned so many more aging techniques that I wasn't any good at.
Sure.
But but again, I really became more of his logistics guy. I just made sure everybody else. We hired a bunch of painters from that area as well, and of course he had brought the guys that he was already loving here in Wilmington, and we did that for months. And
that was I guess what was interesting about that is that was not a Wilmington story per se
at all.
That was a big Hollywood movie coming in and separate from Dino De Laurentiis and the effort here.
But, as far as my story goes, it is that connection of Ward coming to Wilmington because of Dino, and then Ward taking me because of our relationship,
exactly.
which is the story of almost all of us.
For sure.
As far as those of us that have gone out have had incredible. Some of us have had amazing careers, and a lot of us have had successful careers, but all of those careers were based on those early relationships. Well, I mean, it is today as well, but when you're talking about Wilmington's film history.
My experience at Firestarter, I'd finished college in 84, spring 84, and supposed to go to New York to write advertising.
Right.
But I hear they're building a movie studio down here. And so I spent the summer in Charlotte trying to figure out how to get down here. And I never will forget, I went to see Firestarter at the Dollar Flick in Charlotte. You remember they had the second run Dollar Theaters.
Oh, yeah. Well, I saw a lot of movies
and I'm watching that thing with a keen eye because they shot that in Wilmington, and that's where I'm going to go and make movies. And I'm looking at it. And
had you ever been to Wilmington?
Yes. I'd come down in high school to play soccer.
Okay.
We came down and beat up on Laney and Hanover.
And Wildcats.
And soccer. Anyway, so I'm going to come down here, and I'm watching that movie very keenly, and I'm like, I recognize these roads. I said, it looked like North Carolina.
Yeah.
I said, and I think in a way, I said, that makes sense. That I'm going to go down. Yes, we can make movies here.
Yes.
Because you got to remember, growing up at that point, every TV show and everything was shot in California.
Absolutely.
Everything looked like Southern California.
Right. You never recognized your own
And I'm
area.
looking at pine trees and pine straw and sandy, shoulders on the road. I said, you know what? I guess they are making movies down in Wilmington. You know, that's where I'm going to go. You know, Scott, we have so many great stories told on Rat Beer by members of the crew, but we must not forget that it takes a village to make a motion picture. And Wilmington has always been blessed by many businesses and service providers that have risen to the occasion to support the film industry.
Well, let's not forget, it takes a village to run this podcast.
Amen, brother.
And one of the service providers in our area that has been very supportive of us is Rudolph Cinema Supply and Mark Rudolph. It's an expendable shop like no other. Mark has been in the business for 25 years. I have worked personally with him on many, many shows as a best boy, but he literally has everything from tapes and gels to hardware to soft goods to even lighting fixtures. And Mark really runs a 24-hour kind of mentality when it comes to helping productions out in an emergency, and you're just not going to find that kind of service. So Mark Rudolph Cinema Supply, a proud sponsor of Rat Beer.
Hey, so that's a wrap on episode 1 of Rat Beer.
Episode 1 is done.
All right, gang. Subscribe, like, follow, go where you go, do what you do. Find us on ratbeer.com. There's more episodes to come.
And speaking of more episodes, what's coming up on the next one?
Episode 2, I call it The Tribe. Jeff Schlaughter, construction coordinator, who actually built the studio that's now CineSpace Studios, and Rusty Edmondson, electrician, both of which came from Shelby, North Carolina, and worked for Earl Owensby, the B-movie mogul who laid the bed for the filmmaking industry in North Carolina.
All right, well, that's Rat Beer, where stories are told about storytelling. I'm Scott Davis with my co-host John Kretschmer. Be kind, everybody.